email systems, especially Groupwise. Today I want to talk about Novell Groupwise and the Swiss Army knife, as we call it. I want to talk to you how to integrate additional communication channels into Groupwise, additional channels to the ones that Groupwise provides, which is actually email and with the Novell Messenger instant messaging. What else can we add here? What can we do? To start out with, I would like to talk about communication in the enterprise world as of today. We're taking this little guy here, let's call him Angus, the average Novell Groupwise user, as an example. This guy can be anyone from the CEO of a big company to a support person or an IT administrator. How do we, in the enterprise world, how does communication happen in today's world? Is it like it used to be a couple of years ago when all we had was a phone on our desk and a computer next to it and maybe a fax machine somewhere on the same floor where we work, or how does it work today? Today, when we start working, obviously the first tool that we use and that we fire up is our Groupwise client. We start our email system, we check emails. Then we have a telephone. We still have a phone on our desk, or maybe several phones, and we also have some mobile phones. But these phones are not analog phones anymore. They're in most cases, they are digital phones. They're voice over IP compatible phones, meaning that the organizations do have a phone server somewhere within their environment. And with this server, they can allow users to not only use the desktop phones that they have, but also use soft phone clients, maybe on their mobile devices, or maybe soft phone client on their laptops, allowing them to be reachable and accessible through their business extension anywhere in the world, as long as they have an internet connection. Skype, another very powerful tool that started out as being a nice tool to, using the computer to make phone calls. Today, Skype is being used in many, many businesses. It's being used nationwide for TV, in the news. On TV, people use Skype to make video calls. Ourselves from SKyPRO, we are an international company. We have offices in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and in the US, and we have distributors all over the world. And with many of those partners that we have, the best way to talk is via Skype. We either chat or we make phone calls. We make phone conference calls, and we chat and talk at the same time. So Skype has definitely found its way into the enterprise world. Novell Messenger. Whoever is using Groupwise mostly also is taking advantage of the Groupwise Messenger, Novell Messenger, and using this for internal chat. In some areas, people use Salesforce, depending on what the job is, what the work is. Having another address database with customers, marking down customer interaction, and setting themselves jobs. Facebook, social media is definitely a very important piece in today's enterprise world. It used to be the thing that people used after work or would hold people away from work, but in today's world, many businesses are based on using most of the marketing campaigns via Facebook. Amy just mentioned before, GroupLink is on Facebook. By the way, so is SKyPRO. So we do use social media in the enterprise world, so it's a part of our daily business for many people that work within organizations. SMS, or text messages as we call them in the United States, they have become very, very big part of many of many organizations, many businesses. Banks, for instance, send password recoveries or permissions to initiate wires through text messages. Nowadays, governments, courts are sending reminders to customers, to clients, to not forget their court dates via text message. All these things, they are not being used by private people only anymore. Also, businesses are using these technologies because they know that in today's world, you can reach the person you need to talk to somewhere. Everybody's online somewhere at any given moment, at any given time. So I'm always able to talk with someone. Faxing. Some companies don't use it anymore. For others, it's still a business-critical way of communication. Faxing is still very strong for businesses, especially in government, in healthcare, in legal aspects. People still strongly rely on faxing. And it's another communication channel that hasn't went away and probably is not likely to go away very soon. GW talk here, this means any kind of instant messaging system that can be used, that we can use for communication with additional people, with additional contractors, etc., etc. What does that mean for our little Angus? He has all these additional tools that we have. Excuse me just a second. Excuse me, I had to plug in my audio device here so to make sure that you can keep hearing me. What does that mean for Angus? Having all these additional communication channels, all these additional ways of communication mean that he needs to make use of them. He will have multiple address books, address databases at the same time. He will have multiple products to fire up, multiple pieces of software that he needs to fire up. He needs to know how to use Skype. He needs to know how to use all those instant messaging services, making sure everything works. And then the biggest issue for enterprise, of course, he needs to make sure that all this communication stays compliant, because compliance is one of the key issues for an application, or for communication within the enterprise world. What we talk, where we talk, this should be compliant somewhere. We should have these records, recordings and records of what we spoke about, with whom and when, etc. So what we try to do, how we try to help out our little Angus here is we try to help him think of something like a Swiss Army knife. It's a simple tool. It's a small, simple tool, but it is very effective. It helps solving big issues. It helps creating many things with one application. So that's where SKyPRO comes into place. That's exactly what we do. We take all the different channels, the communication channels that in the enterprise world has at expense today, and we rearrange them around Groupwise. And we actually use these little army knife tools, as we call them, and we integrate them with Groupwise. We take your telephony, your instant messaging, being on Skype, on Novell Messenger, or any XMPP-based IM instant messaging service. Take your texting, your telephony, and we integrate it with Groupwise. We let you use your centralized address database that you have, and just expand these other communication channels with it. We integrate your text messages and your faxes within Groupwise. So using these tools, Angus is happy again, because now he can use Groupwise in addition with these additional tools, and he will stay compliant. He will be able to use all those different communication channels, and he'll just use one interface. He doesn't need to learn all these other interfaces. He can use one interface, integrate it with Groupwise, and then he can make the communication through Groupwise, and he will have records of all of these communications. Every time I chat with my distributor in South Africa over Skype, the conversation is being saved within Groupwise, and it's being connected to the person in my Groupwise address book. So if I look at that person's contact history, I have it saved locally in Groupwise. And Groupwise, of course, I have it backed up. I have it always in the latest version. It's always running. So my data is safe. My data is together with the other data that I'm already having for communication. And this makes things a lot easier. This makes us actually take advantage of these additional communication channels that we have available in the enterprise world. The blades, or the different tools that we have. We have our main tool is GW Talk, where we combine your voice over IP telephony. You can connect to Facebook, to the Novell Messenger, any other XMPP-based instant messaging service, Skype, and Salesforce, and also text messaging. You can integrate all of these with GW Talk into Groupwise. We have our Fax Integration, another tool called Fax that integrates your faxing with Groupwise, using a client and server-based solution, you'll have all your fax traffic on a fax server where you can arrange assign faxes to people directly. So you don't need to have separate fax machines anymore. You will send and receive your faxes directly from within your Groupwise mailbox. And SkySMS, our text messaging tool that does a similar thing, that has a similar architecture like our faxing solution. It allows you to send and receive text messages directly out of Groupwise. And also with the server component of this solution, you're able to control who sends how many text messages, where do they go. You can route incoming text messages directly back to mailboxes, meaning I can send a text message out of my mailbox and get the reply to that text back to my mailbox in Groupwise. So this was the little X-course to showing you, letting you know about the Groupwise and the Swiss Army knife. Our main principles are convenience, being more efficient, and of course compliance. All that done through integration. We see that the enterprise world today should take advantage of these, of all these communication channels that exist, other than just plain email and telephony. We should take advantage of them, but we should do this in an efficient way, in a convenient way, and most importantly, integrated and compliant. Are there any questions at this point?
Yeah, I have seen one question come through so far. And again, if you do have any questions, put those through on the chat or the Q&A. So our question so far, if Facebook does LinkedIn tie in also?
LinkedIn, yes. LinkedIn is on the verge of tying in as well. Yes, we have another product coming out where we also tie in LinkedIn. The fourth piece of our product line will be called Communicator, where we have more focus on social media integration. Basically, where you are going to be able to send and to post, to create posts directly through that application. You'll have it. You are also going to be able to pull posts into your Groupwise, all the feeds from LinkedIn, from Twitter, from Facebook, and Google+. This is coming very, very soon. We're actually going to showcase it first at GuavaCon in EMEA in a month. Where can I see the chat? Oh, here, chat. Oh.
Looks like that's all the questions that I'm seeing so far. Christian, I believe if you hover over the very top of your screen, you should be able to pull down chat and Q&A from there if you're interested.
Yeah, let me see where I can find the Q&A.
I think the Q&A is in the drop-down on the right side.
Oh, yeah, here we are. So the LinkedIn question. One other thing that I want to mention at this point is that we do offer complimentary support during installation and setup, and all of our tools are available for evaluation. So if you decide I would be interested in, let's say, the faxing integration, or I would be interested in learning more about GW Talk, I'd be happy to follow up with either a personal presentation, or also with giving you the product, letting you play around with it, see how it works, installing it in your own environment. In case of the faxing and the texting, we would be setting you up with your own server. You would be able to send and receive some text and faxes during a couple of months. You can evaluate the product. We will do remote support during setup and installation. We'll give you training while this all happens. And yeah, that's as fast as it will go. A demo. Becky is interested in a demo. What I can show you, if this is of interest to see here right now, a little demo, what I can do. I mean, Becky, I assume Becky can hear me. If you want to have a private demo, I can do that afterwards. What I can show you here is I can show you quickly my, where is it? My screen, and show you how share. I have to pull over my Windows machine. You will be able to see my Groupwise. Oh. Here you are able to, as soon as this image comes back, you're able to see my Groupwise mailbox. The new things that I have is, let's say I have these dialed folders here that shows me the telephone calls I have made. Here I can see SIP calls, I can see Skype calls. Let's see, I have all these call entries in my mailbox directly, and what my tools are creating to me are these entries here. I see I have a dialed call today. I made a conference call actually with 2 people to 1 hour and 60 minutes, and we see all the notes that I took during the phone call within GW Talk. I see the instant messaging history. So we can see that I have had conversations. Here we see the icons on Skype. I had a Skype conversation with someone here, and I see the whole transcript of this conversation within Groupwise. I have an icon to create a new text message. Then what will happen, the client will pop up for me to create a new text message, and I will see it in here. I can send a text message, type in the number or the name, and it will just like creating an email. So we can just simply start typing a name, and it will give me the name resolution, and I then type in the text for the text message, and it will go out. If I send a text, I believe it's here. You can see here we send some text messages. Then you have the different icons in your Groupwise mailbox of the things that you send and receive. Same goes for faxes. If I send or receive a fax, I'll have a fax icon in my mailbox. I'll see that I received a fax or a text message. Another important thing, what I also mentioned during the presentation itself, is here. Let's pull up. If I go to my Contacts tab and let's say I take Horst here. When I look into his contact information and I look at the contact history with Horst, what I can see is not only the appointments we had, the emails we had back and forth, I can also see the instant messaging chat transcripts. I can also see the phone calls we had, whether Skype or not Skype calls. I can see the text messages, the faxes, the whole conversation that we had, the communication that I have with him. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter if it's email, IM, fax, Facebook, and so on. It's all saved in Groupwise. It's all compliant. Receive a key. With faxing, yes, Becky. Let me see. To be honest, I don't receive too many faxes, but I should have received some for test purposes. The way it works with faxing, there's 2 ways. You have the server and the client. The server is either connected to oh, here we have faxes. This is the fax icon. If I receive a fax, this is what it looks like. It seems like this has already been archived, so it might take a while for it to load. The way it works, the fax server is connected either using a fax board to your fax lines and then being forwarded to your mailbox. Or you can also use it completely virtual, and you don't need to have a fax line anymore. You can connect the FaxWise server with your SIP-compatible phone system. So if you have a phone system that is SIP-compatible, you can just take a phone line and connect your FaxGWise server to that phone line. As a connecting piece, we have it's called an SKyPRO driver. This is basically replacing the hardware of a fax modem or a fax board, so to speak. And this then also allows the usage of the whole thing virtually. and you can use your own phone system to send and receive faxes. Or if you don't have a SIP-compatible phone system, we can also provide you with a hosted fax SIP number, and you'll just have the SIP number through us. I know that we have some customers that have, many customers already have SIP-compatible phone systems, so they're using their own ones, but we also have a handful of customers that are using our services and using it completely hosted, so they have the fax line hosted with us. But the advantage of having the fax system and having fax GUIs is that you yourself are in charge of your fax server. You are in charge. You have everything stored on your side. All the faxes, the incoming and outgoing faxes, are on your premises. They're saved in your server, and you have this to work with. I believe it's still down. Like it was already archived. The way an incoming fax is, it's just like an email. Once you have it open, the only thing that's different is, as you can see, you have a different icon, and the attachment is a PDF file, as it shows here. You just have a PDF file attached. Are there any other questions?
It looks like there are a couple of other questions here. Can you just clarify real quickly what the type of phone line is that it needs to be compatible with?
For the faxing? For the faxing, it just needs to be a regular SIP phone line. Let's say you have a Cisco call manager. All you do is you create a new phone line. The SKyPRO driver that we're using in combination with the fax server will let your phone system. Your fax server is the same like another SIP phone device. It will talk to it like to another SIP extension. So what you basically want to have is you want to have an additional phone number on your telephone system, and you connect this additional phone number with this SKyPRO driver, which is linked to our Fax GUI server. And in that way, incoming and outgoing faxes will be using that phone line to send and receive the faxes. It has to be, so that means you need to have a SIP-compatible phone system. If you don't have a SIP-compatible phone system, you can just still use the regular fax lines that you used to use up until then. But then you will probably connect those fax lines. Instead of plugging them into a fax machine, you'll plug them into a fax modem or a fax board. And a fax board is just multiple fax modems linked together in one piece. The disadvantage or the advantage of the SKyPRO, of the newer version where you can have it virtualized, is of course you can have it virtualized. You don't need to have a physical fax modem anymore, because the fax boards and fax modems, they tend to be pricey. If you're using your own SIP system or you use a hosted phone number for that, it brings down cost. Q&A. I only see one question in Q&A here.
Okay, so it looks like the next question, how is the pricing for the fax component?
Fax component, there are two, well, for the faxing, there are two variables for the price. One end is it's how many users, how many people, how many mailboxes you need to be able to send and receive faxes. We don't go about all your Groupwise users. It's just, let's say you have 5,000 users, but you do know that 2,000 or 200 need to send and receive faxes. The rest of your users don't need to. Then these 200 are is the amount of users you will be licensing. And on the other hand, you'll be licensing the server. And the server price is defined through how many fax lines you have, meaning how many fax numbers will you use. Will you be using just one? Will you be using two fax numbers? And so on, how many fax lines do you need? You can also use several lines with just one number. It basically depends on the traffic that you have. Incoming and outgoing faxes usually on daily basis. That's what brings the price together. For detailed pricing and for quoting, I would be more than happy to quote you on your individual needs. For the software, these parts are the amount of users and the amount of fax lines that you have to find the pricing for Fax GUIs. Should you want to go ahead with if you want to use a fax modem or a fax board, the fax boards are usually pretty pricey. I think a two-line fax board is around $1,000 a piece, where one of those fax drivers is around, for a line, is around 300. Just ballpark. I don't know exactly at the top of my head, but it's around $300 per fax line, and it can be virtualized. So you're saving. The savings are significant, especially in the long run.
Okay, the next question here. With this system, does it do away with long-distance costs?
Well, this depends on how you're faxing. Let's say you're faxing through your SIP. What's it called? Through your SIP phone line, through your own SIP system. If you're using that, the cost of the fax will be the same as if you would call there. And usually, to transmit a fax, I think it takes one page of fax takes anywhere between 35 and 50 seconds. So for that per page, you will be charged from your telephone provider for those 35 or 50 seconds that it takes to send it. Depending on your internal setup, if you have a smart voice over IP phone system in-house and you have multiple locations in several areas, you'll be able to route the outgoing faxes just like you will be routing your phone calls, and you'll have just local costs all around. Or if you have flat rates with your phone providers, that's the same thing. If you choose to have your number through us, I can provide pricing how much it costs, but it's not a lot. It's really not a lot. And the interesting part, of course, in using this, the monthly cost per fax line that you usually have with standalone fax machines, they go away. So I know in one case we had a customer, they used 300 fax machines. That means they had 300 fax lines where they had to pay the monthly fee of $30 for the fax lines. Once they changed to Fax GUIs, they now have, instead of 300 fax lines, I believe they have either 24 or 48 fax lines now. So that's already there. The cost savings are very significant on a monthly basis, just by saving the amount of money for using less fax lines.
Okay, the next question here, it says we don't have VoIP, we only have an old analog system. Does it work with that, or what would you suggest they do with that?
I assume it's Becky again asking the question. Is that true?
Yes.
Well, it will work also with regular fax lines, not a problem. Depending on how many lines she has, it makes sense to get a fax board, or alternatively, we could set up an evaluation. She can actually compare what they prefer. If they want to keep it with the traditional lines. The one thing you have to consider when you're using the traditional fax lines, you will need a physical server, a physical machine for the server to be installed on. If you're using the SIP compatible lines, in her case, obviously we could provide her with these SIP lines. She can have the whole system virtualized. But the product works with both analog and digital phone lines, fax lines. May I suggest to Becky that we have a follow-up call and maybe look into her specific needs in more detail, and maybe maybe having her test run this product within her environment for her to see how it works.
Yeah, that sounds great, Christian, and I'll make sure that that you and Becky both have each other's contact information.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I don't know how many other people are still there. To everyone who's out there, thank you very much for your time. I hope you learned something. You have seen that Groupwise can do more than just sending emails. With Groupwise, people can use all those newly found communication channels to the enterprise world. We can use Facebook, we can use Skype, we can use all that at the office, and we can use it in an enterprise way